Welcome to One Trail Live, the show where I get to talk about anything I want to talk about. In today's episode, I want to talk about commuter bikes and the top 10 things I feel we all need starting off. A lot of these things that I have come up with is by trial and error. And hopefully, my top 10 will kind of shape the way that you view things, and hopefully, and if you made these mistakes, you will be able to um well, if you made these mistakes, I'm sorry. It was a learning experience and some growth. If you hadn't done this yet, then you're welcome in advance, right? Hey Chris, how are you? I've been doing one of the reasons I hadn't been doing the live show for the last 2 or 3 weeks. One, uh, their politics, and I didn't want to risk someone baiting me in over any type of issue, um, any political issue. I didn't want this platform to become that, get sucked into it. So I didn't put up a couple of it. I didn't post for a while. Secondly, I've been doing some work and now I can see comments live. So even though I'm facing this direction, I have other monitoring things going on in the back. I can actually see what you guys are saying up front now and I can react to it quicker. What with that being said and done, a couple things that I come across, and keep an open mind when I go through my list. My list may not be the same that you feel is necessary, but these are just the things that putting on the mileage over the course of the last couple years, what I have kind of come across and said, this is what I need going forward. This is my list. This is my top 10. This is my top 10. The first one is a given, right? Everyone knows that you're going to need a headlight, a decent headlight and tail lights for night riding and just being more visible to motorists and to pedestrians as well. And lighting is very great. I'm not a brand freak, so I invest in quality gear all the time, but I won't spout out different brands because it's really not necessary. What works for you in your budget is great. If it's working, is working. But get a decent light. You don't have to break the bank, but get a decent headlight, tail light, helmet light. You're gonna need that stuff. Makes you visible, makes it easier for you to make it down the roadway. A bike repair kit. Bike repair. You need it all. I prefer to have what you see on the screen here. I have my repair kit that has my patches, my glue, my tools to work on different pieces of the bike. Things that people don't necessarily think about is having a extra inner tube and chain links. The master chain link is a great thing, especially with e-bikes, especially if you have an e-bike that is a mid-drive. Those break the chains pretty often. Chris, you really need to venture out and ride at night more. It's not bad. It's not bad. So if you have a park that you can go to that has a fairly decent trail, and you can pack your bike up, if you don't feel comfortable riding on the street. Um, I get it. I understand. I e I I ride motorcycles as well, so being out in the street on 2 wheels with nothing, surrounding me, keeping me safer, doesn't bother me as much, so I just call it playing in traffic. That's why if you ever hear me talk about riding a bike, I just call it playing in traffic because that's literally what I'm doing. But I can't go as fast as I am on my motorcycle, so, I just piss people off, which is kinda cool. Everyone needs a decent way to inflate their tires. If you are taking if you are out and you are doing touring on your bike, uh, a hand air pump, hands down, is the best thing that you're going to need because CO2, though it is quicker, it has its it has its own shortcomings, and its shortcomings come in the form of the bike n- the tire pressure dropping over time. It fluctuates, especially uh with changing of the weather. So you can start off the day with you can catch a flat, inflate your tires with the CO2. You're nice and solid to make it to wherever you are. Temperature fluctuates in the morning, you're almost flat again. So no matter what, the CO2, you're commuting to work, you catch a flat tire, you need to change and inflate quickly. That's where that is where a spare inner tube comes in versus throwing a patch kit. Patch it when you patch your tire on your lunch break. Um, and keep it going. So the next thing that is great to have are locking grips for your handlebars. And the locking portion isn't locking your hands to the grips themselves. It's the actual grip locks to the handlebars, and it stops them from rotating. Uh, if you have your stock, especially with my rad um, grips, just they're loose. Plus, I ride it going down what it's not supposed to be used for, but I'm in rocky terrain, so the bike I have twisted them to a point to where they stay pretty good, but I'm afraid one day they might just slip right off and I might end up into a tree. That's where the locking grips come into play. Another thing is a rear rack. The rear rack is one of the most touchy subjects for a upgrade. And I'm saying that lightly because I'm pretty sure as I go through the list, everything is touchy. You have to figure out what is, and that kind of ties into your panniers and your trunk bag, whatever you're going to run, uh, what you're going to need for your commute. Do you live in a city where it rains a lot? Uh, mo- there are some decent brands out there, so you have to decide. And they go from $20 to $200, literally. They have different values: water resistance, reflective. Stripping on them so that makes you more visible in low light conditions. But mostly the rack itself gives you the most options on the way that you can tilt your bags, to how far it is away from your pedals, to the bag. The one that I use a toe peaks rack, and it allows me to put my panniers on and still allows me to put a trunk on. And in my trunk, that's what I usually keep snacks, camera equipment, that sort of thing. You gotta wow. That's funny, Chris. So the first time, not the first time, within 2 weeks of me owning my red, I got a flat tire, uh, on the road on the street, and it was a nail because I crossed over that white line, where all the junk ends up, and I usually, and my rule is, if you have to end up on the other side of that white line instead of making cars go around you, or a place where it says you have to stay on that side. Okay, so bike lanes tend to be a lot cleaner than just that shoulder. So I try to avoid the shoulder as much as possible because you end up hiking a bike because you catch a flat tire. Upgrading your seat is another one of those things that I can't get brand specific and I can't give you size because that's going to come down to personal preference of what you need for your tushy. You could easily just need, one of those racing type seats that is very narrow with very little padding. Or you could be on the other end of the spectrum where you need a wider pad with a lot of cushion. So that that's something that you will have to really jump off into yourself, but it is definitely one of those things where it is worth upgrading. The red came with a fairly decent seat. And if I had to do it all over again, I may not have purchased the seat that I have now. I'm saying that now, but I hadn't switched back since I put my new seat on. So that I guess that tells me something, right? A suspension seat post, very, very controversial. If you are counting grams, then a suspension seat post is gonna take you way out of the loop where you want to be as far as uh weight class. So keep that in mind. But it does improve the quality of the ride. Overall, suspension seat post, I put that on and I hadn't looked back yet. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Your panniers is an absolute must. That's why it's so I guess it's not super high on the list when it comes down to, if you need to call someone for a ride because your bike broke down. But the panniers rack, definitely one of those things. Pedals. Pedals, 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 pedals. Everyone knows I am a fan of clipless pedals. I use a hybrid by Shimano. It has it's clipless, it accepts a cleat, and but on the other side of it is flat, so I'm able to ride in rougher terrain, sketchier terrain, I should say, and I'm able to get my foot off the bike a lot quicker. With that being said, the clipless pedals, if you're riding them out in the elements, make sure you keep them lubed. That will also aid you in getting out of your pedals quickly when need be. The last accessory is it's literally an accessory holder. It's basically getting your dashboard together to accept, especially with an e-bike when you have your monitoring system for your controller. Uh, that extra bar for mounting your accessories, anything from cell phones to GPSs to lights, just depending on what you need. I would definitely not over accessorize the bike. There's a lot of things that you really don't need at any given time. But then again, it's your bike. You do what you want to do. It's more stuff that'll fall off, and it's making your front end heavier than potentially it needs to be. But that's just me. So again, Chris, I can't recommend any type of seat. What I would only thing that I can tell you is find your local bike store and go in and try a couple seats. Cloud9 makes a good seat, and there's just different variants. It's like I said, everyone's tushy is different. Um, the seat that I have is a tad bit, and I do mean a tad bit better than the seat that came with the red. But one thing that I learned um, later on was I didn't have my bike fully set up properly. And that makes a big difference as well. Having your your seat height and the pitch of it correct helps out tremendously. But when it comes down to it, yeah, sure. If you want to if you want to buy a decent seat, that's great. Don't throw a whole. And if you're not putting serious miles in, don't spend a whole lot of money on it. One thing that I will tell you for absolute certainty: if you ride long enough, everything feels like a brick after 30 miles. Everything feels like a brick. Sorry, doesn't matter. You could, unless you're sitting on pillows, it's going to feel like a brick after so long. I have the suspension seat post made the absolute biggest difference when it has come down to seat versus ride, especially with a hardtail bike. Um, if I had a full suspension bike, then maybe just the seat would have been great alone. But that's my top 10 of my recommendations on what everyone should have when it comes down to the the day-to-day commute. And I I really, I was keeping this one short today. Yeah, I'm keeping this one short today. Hopefully my top 10 helps guide you into making a great decision. Uh Before I jump off of here though, I want to let you know that next week I have a slew of different videos coming out. We're starting to change seasons, so I'm going to help everyone get ready for winter riding. That will be bike setup. So I got bike cleaning setup videos coming. We're going to be speaking with some experts. Um, I have completely overhauled my clothing that I will be wearing on the road, and I want to show that to you. So stay tuned to my upcomings and endings of where I kind of ended up over time. But be sure to comment below of or if you guys have some suggestions of some videos that you would like to see, drop them below and I can get them going for you. Also, if you have any questions on how to reach me, again, the numbers that you see on the screen are always good. Email, uh, Dropbox. Oh, I mean, email me. Just get at me. See ya.